Hello and welcome to the first video in my 2026 Criterion Challenge, covering the first 4 movies of the challenge. For those of you who don't know, the Criterion Challenge is hosted annually by letterboxed user Ben. He compiles a list of 52 categories or themes, and you are supposed to watch a movie that fits that category each week that is in the Criterion collection. Criterion is a company that releases movies physically, and it also just acts as a way to put their stamp of approval on movies. While not every Criterion movie is good, they are most likely important movies and worth an attempted watch at the very least. Last year, I made one big video covering my entire challenge. It was a lot of work for the end of the year, and was a little awkward to look back on stuff so long ago. So this year, I'll be doing a monthly video covering 4 each year. I am a little bit behind, but I will make up with that with these first 2. Then at the end of March, we will get back to the regularly scheduled thing of doing it every month. Enough yapping, time to talk about some movies. The first category of the challenge this year was to pick a movie Criterion released 20 years ago, the anniversary of these movies being added to the collection. There were a few interesting movies that I considered, but I went with Edward Yang's 2000s release E.E., one of the big mythical films for people entering the hobby. Everyone talks about it lovingly, and it is considered the 12th best movie on Letterboxd overall. I'm hoping to kick this year's list off with a bang. E.E. is about your typical middle-class Taiwanese family, the Zhanes. Dad, NJ, Mom, Min Min, daughter, Ting Ting, and son, Yang Yang, and how the family is affected when the grandmother has a stroke, leaving her in a coma. Min Min goes on a spiritual retreat to the mountains, NJ has to deal with his work and the return of an old lover and his kids, Ting Ting has to reckon with the fact that her grandmother had a stroke taking out the trash that she was supposed to take out, and gets in a weird love triangle with her best friend and a boy. Meanwhile, the youngest, Yang Yang, deals with teasing from a girl and refuses to talk to his grandmother even if the doctors suggest it. He gets a camera and starts photographing the world to try and learn more about it. The grandmother dies and Yang Yang finally talks to her with a monologue that sums up the entire movie, about wanting to show people what they can't see. And that conclusion is exactly why so many people, myself included, love this movie. It is about life and you get so much from it. Seemingly little moments are put into perspective by this movie. Make these little moments of life feeling so big, because they are big in the moment. When you were a kid, everything was confusing, and I had at least somewhat forgotten that feeling. I know I don't understand everything now, and I have become comfortable with that feeling these days. This reminded me of a younger age. The story I connected with most was Yang Yang and his discovery of self and the world. I feel stuck in some of the same traps he was. I would also be reluctant to understand the benefit in talking to someone like this, and have a hard time sorting through relationships with others. They perfectly put this kid to the screen to make me feel for him and resolve his feelings. Then there is Ting Ting, who I also connected with quite a bit. The friendship, drama, and guilt aspects. Now, she does have the most out there part of the movie, where the guy she was in love with in this love triangle ended up murdering the teacher of the 3 of the students in the love triangle because said teacher was having a relationship with the child and her mom. It's a wild story that low-key came out of nowhere and distracts from things in my opinion. It was only tangentially related to this and is easily the least grounded thing to happen in the movie. So while I can't relate to that part in specific, I do know the pain that comes from losing friends and the raw power of those feelings that this character was going through, tied in with her feeling responsible for her grandmother's stroke. They mix in a really impactful way to me. I feel responsible for the end of some friendships in the past, and I feel how the two feelings of losing those relationships with you being the cause hit very hard at points for me. The movie didn't do much to tie the two ideas together, instead just giving the one character the 2 different traits and storylines. But that is magical here. It lets you project your own feelings onto the character and plot. Looking at this movie, most people wouldn't expect to love it. It is a 3-hour slowish movie about observing a family. It doesn't sound all that engaging or great, but the observation elements is what makes this sing. You will get out of this movie what you put into it, letting you see these characters in action. What I got out of this was different from any other person. If you have the mental energy to put into this movie about every facet of life, I can't imagine this going down poorly with you. But since it is so long and big, there might be aspects you don't fully connect with, and that is fine. It doesn't ruin the movie for me at the very least. I've not brought up NJ's brother Adi at all. He marries out at wedlock, but then they fight due to past loves coming in and his general incompetence as a human. He begs for money and was just a character I really didn't get a single thing from in the runtime. I failed to see what there was to gain from his storyline, and it didn't mean anything to me. I was also in the same boat for the mother who disappeared on some religious retreat for almost the entire movie. Pop off, Queen, but these parts hold this movie back ever so slightly for me, where I just don't connect to it as much. Then there was NJ himself, who gets a lot of screen time. I am finding it very hard to articulate articulate how this part of the movie affected me. The best I can do is that I felt like Yang watching him in these matured problems of having to be the center and the stone of the family, deciding between a friend and work, whether he should choose profit and financial stability over morals. These big problems make the stuff about petty friendship drama seem small. I can't fully grasp how I feel, but what I do know is that this movie made me feel like a kid. I didn't just relate to Yang and Ting Ting. I am them in one sense. I'm just some 23-year-old, and whenever I think I have figured something out, life's next problem will come. However, you don't need to dwell on it, and that feeling is natural. You just have to find a new way to tackle your problem. Movies about so much can be hard to talk about, but the more I think about this movie, the more I love it. I also have this weird, unique feeling with this movie. I can't wait to watch this in 5 years' time, 10 years, when I am as old as my sister, like an old hag is. I could see this movie being a gold mine of knowledge I keep returning to over my lifetime. Crazy that this was a directorial debut and as great as it is. It would have been so easy to drop when you were juggling this many plates. I have been vocally anti-child acting for a while now. I find kids to struggle to convey emotion properly and blame the adults behind the scenes of the movie for that. But Jonathan gave one of the best child performances I've ever seen here. He cemented himself in the history books like Sote, Man on Fire, and The Florida Project, as kids that just got it and carry an entire movie on their back, when they really shouldn't have to. Some big props to him for that. I do think his quiet nature helped as well. Last year's first movie was In the Mood for Love, and I gave it 5 stars. When I watched EE, I gave it 4.5, but after sitting and reflecting, writing this review, I wish I had given it the full 5. It is a brilliant piece of filmmaking that stands as an excellent start to the challenge this year. A movie that is large and makes you feel everything under the sun. Here's hoping we get 51 other movies as good as this one, but I doubt that will happen. Category number 2 was any movie in the collection not on your watch list. I vehemently hate watch lists, and my personal one is around 30 movies long, which already feels like too many, so I could literally pick any movie I wanted out there pretty much. It was a free space for the video. I ended up choosing this entire challenge list shortly after I finished my video on the 2025 challenge, so it was still very fresh in my mind. And quite a few of the movies I picked here were influenced by what I enjoyed from last year, and my favorite movie of the bunch was The Heroic Trio starring Anita Moy, and some other Hong Kong movies. So I went back to that well and chose one of her movies with Rouge. This movie is about the 1930s relationship between Fleur, a high-end prostitute, and the son of a wealthy family who wants to act and leave the family business. The two know their relationship will never be accepted and commit suicide together. Fast forward 50 years and Fleur is back as a ghost looking for her lover who never reunited with her in death. She gets the help looking for him from a modern-day 1980s couple. She finds her love who never ended up committing suicide and moves on to properly rest afterwards. The movie is divided into 3 sections. The first is establishing Fleur and Chan's relationship, slowly building that up. Then we get Fleur crashing Yun and Chor's lives, how the two react to her and establishing them in this world. Finally, we have Fleur and Co. looking for Chan, going to the agreed upon meeting place, so I'll tackle each chunk of the movie as they happen. God damn, was this first section of this movie sexy. It was steeped in romance and spice, the longing looks and desire coming off of these characters, slowly building until they embrace. Then, the way they just laid there talking is some of the sexiest filmmaking I've ever seen. Some lush, colorful close-ups pulling you in even further and giving you what you wanted. 2 hot people in love. Also showing us the two of them through mirrors repeatedly, getting across the idea that this is a forbidden love, and the cultural problems surrounding the two of them. But even through that, you could feel their draw towards one another, and I got caught up in that draw. It worked fully and got me where the movie wanted me to be at. Then we move on to the modern day ghost part. There's this small chunk here that is necessary. You need to establish Young and Chor as part of the story in a more normal, realistic, yet vibrant counterpart to Fleur and Chan. But the movie meanders for just a little bit here in the middle, with them starting to believe she is a ghost. I get why you can't just have Fleur show up and the couple accepts it. You also need to spend some time with the couple as characters to set them up. The movie very clearly needed both relationships to establish on their own to compare them against each other, but the two of them were caught up in the same romanticism that I was surrounding Fleur, even asking each other if they would die for each other, coming to the conclusion that it was ultimately unnecessary. Even if you romanticize about an idea like like that. So this part of the movie was enjoyable while it happened, but I think it was notably a little bit weaker than the first and what follows. Then finally we have the search for Chan and what is revealed about each of the relationship. At this point, I thought the movie was about the eternal love between Flora and Chan, starting with the dual suicide leading to the endless ghost wandering. But the reveal that Chan has continued to live life after letting Flora kill herself for him shattered my thoughts on what the relationship in the movie is about. The key takeaway is that some people aren't worth it. Even through all the glitz and glamour, being there is what counts, and Flora never got that. Grand declarations and gestures mean nothing if that person isn't there for you. All the feelings from the flashback scenes weren't love, but lust, and it can be shockingly easy to confuse the two of them. The movie, especially Flora and Chan's relationship, is about finding closure, far more than it is about romance connecting people over lifetime. But the movie never gets rid of that romanticism and the idea that you should invest in other people. Instead, the modern day couple taking over what romantic connection and love is about, going back to that more grounded view of love, achievable and sustainable. The more I sit on this movie and think about Yun and Chor, the more I realize that they are the ideal relationship. They love spending time with each other and trust and know each other very well, have moments of passion but allow for life to happen. The moving story is brilliantly put together, playing with your expectations and feelings, showing you one connection, drawing you in, and then blindsiding you and revealing the truth. I just love when a movie is able to play with my emotions and expectations like this one did. Holds its cards close to its chest, and then hits you with the old switcheroo while making everything work, and the pieces were all there from the start. I am pleasantly surprised with the journey this movie took me on, one that I connected with pretty deeply. All the time I've just talked about the story of the movie, and there is still stuff to talk about. I mentioned the visual towards the start of the movie, but they remain peak throughout. I'm going to be saying this for a good amount of these movies, but just look at how colorful this movie is, how it pops off the screen. The vibrancy along with Anita Moy is what drew me to pick the movie. I am primed to like a movie if it looks like this. And bringing up Anita Moy one more time, she's quickly becoming one of my favorite actresses and celebrities of all time. I'm obsessed with everything she does, the entire brand / personality she has. Beyond being one of the most emotionally expressive actresses of her generation and all time, she has also released hundreds of songs, and I found myself returning to her discography semi-regularly when I need to focus. She regularly helped make the music for the movie she is in, and that is true for Rouge. Her voice is just beautiful and adds to my love of this movie. I've also began to notice the pattern of androgyny and playing with gender presentation throughout her career. She walks a line between traditional femininity while also breaking it, leaning into a more masculine presentation. And Rouge is another example of her playing with these themes. Flora feels less beautiful and feminine than those around her, and carries that, saying she looks manly without makeup on. One of the core reasons Flora and Chan's relationship is forbidden is that Chan's mother doesn't see Flora as ladylike. It's just a small undercurrent in the movie, one I don't think most people picked up on if you weren't looking for it, but I've just really loved her, and I love this small layer to most of her stuff. Her chemistry with Leslie Chung, who put up a solid performance, is off the chart. What makes the movie sting even more about lost love is the fact that these two actors died within months of each other in 2003. Like, it just makes the movie where the two characters supposedly committed suicide to link them forever hit all that much harder when the actual actors died so close to each other. Rouge is such a layered movie with so much to talk about. It made me feel, and that is what we want out of movies, right? The only thing holding this back was that small section in the middle where it spends a little bit too much time considering the ghost story, but it's definitely a classic romance movie in my opinion. I can see that problem completely washing away with a rewatch, and I'll remember the good parts of this one. Category 3 is a pretty simple but fun one, a movie with a color in the title. I didn't have much of a thought process behind this one, scrolled through the possible selections and saw Black Moon. The poster looked pretty sick and I thought the description was cool, and sometimes that is all it takes to get onto this list. Lily is fleeing a post-apocalyptic war where men and women are on opposite sides. She witnesses some brutal violence, then sleeps and wakes up to see a unicorn and some naked children chasing a pig. She follows them to this house that's all peaceful, and she's clearly entered some kind of magical world at this point. In the house is an old bedridden woman who yells at Lily. She then goes outside and finds a boy who telepathically tells her that his name is Lily, and so is his sister's name. Everyone here is named Lily apparently. A bunch of weird shit happens, and then the unicorn tells Lily the old woman's not real. And Lily ends up taking the old woman's spot in the bed, and the movie ends with Lily preparing to breastfeed the unicorn for some fucking reason. There was unfortunately no way I went 52 for 52 movies that I loved and rated super highly. We had to hit a dud, and Black Moon has the unfortunate dishonor of being the first first to get that title. It's not bad, just not fully my type of movie. Black Moon started strong, dropping you in a world with some real violent conflict and Lily desperate to escape. There was an energy that pushed the start of this movie. Like the first 10-15 minutes of silence and some great cinematography around the car, it pulled me in immediately with the interesting concept of trying to escape what seems like an all-out war. Every turn Lily made led to a scene more violent, and it felt like she was going to struggle to find an out of the war. But then she just stumbled upon a house where all that conflict they established was washed away, and the movie began to lose me very quickly once we actually got to the house. I was on board for the alternate universe scary gender war, but once you bring the naked kids and old woman who talks to Rat in, it loses. Then it settles into this type of movie I don't connect with at all. Illogical and weird just for the sake of it. Think of your typical dreamlike oddness that comes with a Lynch film. The movie is abrasive and standoffish, not telling you what is going on, actively trying to confuse you, which you need some payoff for me to like. And the oddness and rough edges had to lead somewhere, but I never got that for this movie. I think the movie's about the loss of innocence, but like even that is me filling in some of the gaps here. Like so much of what happens in this movie is just here to confuse you. Why was everyone named Lily? From my perspective, a lot of this just means nothing, that part included. I did love the fat, ugly unicorn. I'm a big supporter of like ugly little guys in movies, and this unicorn gave me that. He was by far my favorite part of the movie. Just like, look at this guy. He was designed in a lab to be something I enjoyed. While I didn't love my time with Black Moon, I don't think it is a bad movie. There is something I have been really thinking about lately. The difference between if I enjoy a movie or if it is a good one. For the longest time, I have thought that if I didn't enjoy a movie, it was bad. If I did enjoy it, the movie would be good. This thinking primarily comes from my hatred of the concept of people saying a movie was bad, but they love it. I find the concept devoid of reason, and I don't really understand it, so I just naturally implied the inverse. I would never say a movie I love is bad, because loving it makes it good. But here lately, I have come around to the idea that just because I dislike a movie, it doesn't mean that movie is bad. And Black Moon is the perfect example of that. It is very intentional with the elements I dislike. It means to and wants to push some viewers away, and I just so happen to be one of those viewers. It's a low budget auteur going out and making the exact movie he wanted to, not caring what others think, which I can appreciate the artistry and thought process behind the movie, even if I don't enjoy it. I'm unsure if that made any sense, but I respect Black Moon even if I didn't enjoy watching it. Making and giving it a star rating kinda hard, but hey, I don't need to for this video, so I just won't say it out loud. Category 4 was a 2020s release or an upcoming Criterion release. I didn't want to date this project by doing an upcoming release, so I just went with the 2020s movies. I have seen a fair amount of the options here, especially the 2023 and later bunch, so I went with a 2020 release on the dot. A year I've seen very few movies from, and I went with One Night in Miami. It is a historical fan fiction heavily inspired by real events, and the movie was adapted from a stage show. It's about the night following Muhammad Ali's fight, then known as Cassius Clay. Malcolm X brings together Clay, musician Sam Cooke, and football player switching to acting Jim Brown for the night. What seemingly starts as a celebration of Clay and the four men's success turns into a conversation about race, politics, and social status. How Malcolm believes each man has the talent and responsibility to fight for freedom, and they aren't fully taking that opportunity. After hearing the fact that this was some fanfiction type thing, I was immediately turned off, unsure of the idea, about taking these real people and sort of mythologizing them and their conversations. I also only knew about X and Ali going in, so it was a mix of people I was somewhat knowledgeable about versus people I was learning about. But the more I thought about it, the more I get on board. Taking these known figures and basing it off of real life, just enough gives the movie a juice to it. Not trying to be faithful to real life gave them room to make the movie what it was. I just had to overcome the hurdle in my brain that was put there for some reason, but I like the idea of historical fan fiction as movies, and what you're allowed to play with there. The performances and screenplay are the clear highlights here. A bunch of actors in their elements going back and forth, a sparring of ideas. Our four main actors knew what they were doing, and really pulled it off. I like politically and socially charged movies, and argument movies, so naturally I enjoyed my time with this one, especially considering it does have a stance politically. One I don't feel qualified to break down, but I do appreciate a movie like this having teeth to it on terms of the political side. However, I find One Night in Miami to be rather basic aside from that. It's a safe directorial debut from Regina King, who shows she has what it takes to direct, but never proves herself more than that. It could just be that the performances stand out so much it drowns out some of the directing. This is the type of theatrical debut that doesn't leave me desperate for more from that director, but I'd happily watch her for future movies because she didn't do anything outstandingly bad here. The movie does just end up feeling like a really good play put to film. I wish the filmmaking had just a little bit more juice behind it, made it more than just a great adaptation, but I don't really know how to do that. It's a solid ass movie that I could see myself revisiting and enjoying more with time. Getting a second watch in could reveal some of the deeper thoughts this one has to offer, while it also offered enough on the first viewing to be a satisfying movie. So that's the end of my first 2026 Criterion Challenge video. These first two are slightly off schedule-wise because I thought I would do one big video, then I had the idea for these smaller ones and I like this more. I'm going to try to commit to weekly videos at this point once again. Next Monday will be my award show for 2025, then the second batch of Criterion movies after that. Then the next 3 are not fully decided. There will be a review of the Best Picture winner, and if one battle loses, there will be a review of that. Then we'll get back to the Criterion Challenge at the end of March, and every end of the month from there on. Hopefully you will be on board for all this, like, comment and talk about movies with me, subscribe, all that good stuff in there. Thanks for watching.